What's going on, everybody? We're back. Episode number 193 of the Club and Sub Podcast. This week, we're talking UFC Paris, getting headlined by the God of War himself, Benoit Saint-Denis, taking on Renato Moicano. Good main event, solid card. Guys, before we talk about anything, though, drop a like, subscribe, it'd help us out. And again, I say it every week, but we're sponsored by Fight Numbers. They got all the DraftKings projections by John Kelly, the incredible new trends tool, the live odds screen, and bets from Ozzy and Pepe, two super sharp guys. So check it out for 30% off your first month. Use the promo code CLUB. Before we jump into this week, though, we'll talk last week real quick. I did pretty well. I think I won 3.6 units, just pulling it up right now. I had 3 units on Miranda at plus 115. Obviously, that worked out. Fight went more or less according to plan. O'Malley 135 is a grift. Don't believe it. I had 2 units on Ode Osborne plus 142. That almost worked out. No one does a better job of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory than Ode Osborne. That was heartbreaking. And then I had a unit on the under 2.5 at plus 215 in Ketlin Souza and Yasmin Uregi. That obviously hit. I had been tempted on the Yasmin ITD side, but ultimately just opted for under because I felt like Yasmin was kind of a chin liability, and that ended up turning out to be the case. So, yeah, it was plus 3.6 units for me on the card. How'd you do, lads?
Not great, and honestly, it all came down to pretty much the Torres fight. So, of course, the one time I either go on or against Torres, he, shows his ugly colors. I had the under 2.5 parlayed in that fight, but Rosas didn't end up getting a finish in that fight because I had the under 2.5 in that fight. And then the only winning bet of the night, though, I had the Zellhuber Ribovics fight to go the distance at minus 150, which, I mean, not a good bet. I like it cash, but not a good bet. I wouldn't remake that same bet at the same time.
It's actually, the Torres fight is a good lesson in not waiting for live, though, because like I was like, oh, I'm going to wait for live to play Bahamundes, and then he just beat his ass from the jump. So,
well, here's the other thing, too. It's another lesson that if the guys look like frauds, well, they're probably frauds, and you should probably just stay off and just maybe target violence like I did and just avoid the Torres side altogether. But, yeah.
Well, we'll get into a few of those this week, and we start off with one that I don't know if I'm going to call him a fraud, but first fight of the night, we got Balaji Oki. He's taking on Chris Duncan. Current price, Oki minus 190. Comeback on Duncan plus 165. Duncan checks a lot of the boxes I usually like to check for betting an underdog, but I just can't do it with Chris Duncan. I'm unsure what to make of Balaji Oki. I think the guy's got a lot of weaknesses in his game. I don't think he's got great defense. I think his game on bottom looks very, very poor to me, and I don't think his output is the best either. But what he does have, he's really, really fast. He's an insane athlete, seems to have really good hardware, really nice jab, and he seems to hit pretty hard. Duncan, obviously the more experienced guy. He's fought a better level of competition. I think he's the more skilled fighter as a striker and as a grappler, certainly as a grappler. So why not bet him? Dude, I mean, Chris Duncan, he's just glacially slow, man. Like, it's actually unreal how plodding and slow Chris Duncan is. On top of which, Oki doesn't move his head, but neither does Chris Duncan. And the big difference between the two of them is Oki's got a seemingly iron chin, and Chris Duncan's been hurt in almost every fight he has been in against decent competition. So I just look at it and I'm like, the hardware gap here is just insane. Like, Duncan's probably the more skilled fighter, but he's so easy to hurt. He's so slow. If he can get his grappling going, I can see him winning this fight, and I could see him having success with that. But I don't think it's going to be very easy for him to close distance on Oki here. I'm just happy to stay off. I lean the Oki side just on raw athleticism and physical intangibles. What do you think?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you completely again there. I mean, I think Oki, his speed, his power, I think he probably does knock out Duncan. Like, to your point, Duncan is very slow and plodding on the feet and very easy to crack. So I don't think Oki's a fraud by any means. Like, I think he's fine.
He's talented, but he's very raw.
Yeah, he is. And that's why I think a test, I shouldn't even say a test, but a fight like Duncan is a good one for him.
It's a decent test. He's certainly better. He's certainly the best fighter that Oki's fought. No question about it.
Agreed.
Moving on, we got Jacqueline Cavalcanti. She's making a short notice turnaround here to take on the French woman, Nora Cornoli. I think is it Cornol or Cornoli? I don't
I
even
think it's
know.
Cornol.
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 Okay. The French, you never know with their names.
I
Current
know, right?
price, Cavalcanti, minus 210. Come back on Cornol, plus 180. What are your thoughts here, Lex?
I have no action on the fight, and nor would I. And I can only really lean the Cavalcanti side, but I just have bad vibes around the whole, like just the booking, the short notice nature in France rematch. Like it seems like a bad vibe because in general, it's going to be a striker versus striker. I think Cavalcanti is just the better striker, in my opinion. I mean, to me, Cornell is very plotty. She mostly just has power. She's not very good, in my opinion.
Yeah, similar feelings. I almost bet Cavalcanti at minus 180, and then the line moved, and I just didn't get it in. I capped her at about 70%, so like minus 233. But I don't know, like, obviously they fought once, but it was Cornell's debut. I mean, Cavalcanti whooped her in that fight, but obviously it was her first professional fight, so it's like, how much do you want to put in that? I do think when you look at them, Cavalcanti's clearly the much better fighter. I mean, I don't expect much grappling to happen here, but she's the better grappler if it does happen. She, in my opinion, is a much better striker. She's taller, longer, a lot younger, a lot more output. I think she's got much better defense. The thing that scares me is, you see this a lot, especially in women's, when you back a volume striker who's not going to grapple much and who doesn't have like a ton of power, and they're fighting the fighter they're fighting actually does have power, like Nora Cornol, and it's just like, how much volume is it going to take for Cornol to swing around off big shots? I don't know, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think Cavalcanti should cook her, to be honest, but I can't get Cavalcanti's last fight out of my head. I mean, that was a split decision. I thought she won 30-27, but clearly the judges liked Nunes going forward and throwing heavy shots, even though most of them weren't doing much. And Cavalcanti is very, very accepting of the back foot, and I expect she will be here too. And if that's the case, like you said, short notice in France, fighting the French woman who hits harder, I think she should roll here. But just on the power difference alone and the fact that it is short notice, I'm kind of happy to pass. I will be doing a human sacrifice before the Met game. Pepe saying Jacqueline by KO. That is a bold pick. Could happen. I mean, she was hurting her in the first fight, but we'll see. Moving on, we got Daniel Perez taking on Victor Altamirano. Current price, Altamirano minus 125. Comeback on Perez, plus 105. I bet Perez for a unit and a half, plus 103. I am like, I don't know, man. I get why people don't like Daniel Perez. Seems a bit on the wilty side. Obviously, the way he got finished by Jafel Filo was a fairly ugly look. Lost a tight split decision on Contender Series to Carlos Hernandez. But he's a decent fighter, in my opinion. He carries very, very plus power for a flyweight. He's got a ton of KOs. He's knocked down a ton of guys. He is a plus grappler offensively, in my opinion. Decent wrestler, decent from top position. And I think, the narrative around his cardio is a bit overstated, primarily from the Hernandez fight, because Hernandez, he'd take Hernandez down, and Hernandez is just very, very hard to hold down. He made him work really, really hard in that fight. And he still almost won the third round of that fight. So, I don't know. I feel like that aspect of Perez's game is being overstated because he had a couple fights regionally where he grappled hard for 15 minutes and looked just fine. Obviously, Altamirano, the more seasoned UFC fighter, he's got more UFC fights. Victor's a guy I backed in the past. I bet him in his last fight. I actually like how his process has kind of developed into being much more volume wrestling over, his last couple fights. I just don't think he's very threatening anywhere, though, man. Like, the guy's been to like 4 split decisions in like 6 or 7 fights. He will go for takedowns, but he's not a great wrestler. When he does get on top, he doesn't really hold guys down. Like last fight, Felipe Dos Santos took him down 9 times, and Dos Santos got up each time without really any issue. And like Felipe Dos Santos, pretty bad on bottom. And like no one wanted to bet this guy at plus 260 against Felipe Dos Santos, but now they want him at like as a favorite against Perez. I look at it and just think this guy's never separated from anybody on the feet standing. Every one of his striking fights is very close. He's a decent wrestler, but not great on top. He's a pretty poor defensive wrestler, and he's a guard player on bottom. Like, I do think either of these guys could potentially get top time if they get there, because both are kind of accepting of guard. But I think Perez is the much better defensive wrestler of the two. I think he's the better offensive wrestler. And, like, even if they just strike for 15, Maybe Altor Morano janks another close decision, but I just think, the power gap is huge here. Perez hits so much harder. I think he'll have the more eye-catching shots, and I think he's the much more likely of the two to hurt him. So, I make Perez a small favorite. I bet him a plus 103. What do you think?
I think it's a super intriguing fight, honestly, and I think you can make cases for both sides because to your point with Altor Morano's wrestling not being good, and I've said that in the past, I don't think it's great. I think it could be enough here with the amount of takedowns that he is shooting because he does, like to your point, he is shooting a lot of volume takedowns lately in his fights. To me, I guess on the Perez side, if it goes late, if he doesn't find a finish, are you super happy about the ticket? I guess, because
I don't. Like I said, I don't think his cardio is nearly as bad as the market does.
And I guess that's not really what I'm trying to say, and I don't think his cardio is bad. I just think it's a close fight if he's not finding a finish. I think Altor Morano puts a decent amount of volume, wrestles a good bit.
I agree. I guess what I say to that though is just Perez clearly throws harder. He lands with a lot more impact, which I think in a fight that is likely to be close, that gives him a semi-significant edge. If they're standing.
Agreed. And I think the leg kicks are going to be huge for him too.
Yeah, agreed. And Altor Morano is a skinny bastard.
Yeah. Very easy kick.
Moving on. Aileen Perez taking on Daria Lesnakova. Perez currently minus 232. Lesnakova plus 197. Lags, you taking the dog shot here?
I wanted to going into tape, but coming out of tape, I think takedowns are probably free. So it's a pass.
Yeah, honestly, if you told me I could trust Aileen Perez's cardio, I'd probably lay a bomb on her in this spot at this price. Yeah. I legitimately think I agree with you. I think takedowns are going to be pretty easy. I think she's going to be able to get a lot of control and dominate on top here. But I don't trust her cardio.
Real quick to interject. The only thing I don't have a great read on is I don't think she's a great finisher. That's the problem. That's the thing. What does she bring to the table? Her submission game, none. Ground and pound is.
She doesn't. That's kind of my point. That was when I was looking at it. I was, if she was a bit more dangerous to either find a sub or finish via ground and pound, I'd be interested because I do think she's gonna, especially early in this fight, she should really own the early minutes in this fight. But I don't think she is, and I think of the two, Lesnakova is likely the much more potent finisher. If we get into a situation here where Perez is gassed and can't get takedowns on the back end of this fight, she's going to eat some fucking bombs, Lesnakova throws hard and throws a lot, and it's hard for me to, given the performance Lesnakova put in against Montserrat Rendon, it's hard for me to get excited about her dog price, even though I do think she is live, on the back end of this fight. Stylistically, it's a good matchup for Perez. I just don't trust her to finish the fight, and I don't trust her cardio. I think, if anything, maybe try to bet Lesnakova live if she looks like she's doing a reasonable job working up, but I sort of suspect that's not going to happen. Moving on. Interesting fight here. Not that interesting. We got Taylor Lapis taking on Vince Morales. Current price, Lapis minus 360. The comeback on Morales, plus 295. I don't know. I could see an argument for a dog argument for Morales, but I'm not going to make it because at the end of the day, they're going to strike for 15, right? Which is good for Morales. Right. And Lapis isn't really going to be a proactive calf kicker, which is also good for Morales. So it's I could see them maybe having a close striking fight. Maybe Morales has some moments, and maybe that's enough to justify plus 300 on Morales. I guess for me, where I jump ship is I just think the speed difference between the two is just gigantic here. Lapis is so fast. I think he's a superior technician. He's got superior striking metrics, does a much better job of getting in and out of the pocket. The volume. I just like Lapis's volume a lot more. Vince Morales, the guy who got out-volumed at distance by Miles Dons not that long ago. I look at it, and my view is unless you think Morales is going to be, really impacting Lapis with his shots or hurting him, I just don't see how he's going to keep up with Lapis on the numbers. I think Lapis is likely to get way ahead of him. And Farid Basharat had a hard time grappling Lapis for the first 8 minutes of that fight. I really don't think Vince is going to have much grappling success either. So, and they're in France, and it's short notice for Vince. Lapis knew he had a fight on the French card and has been training as such, and Vince is getting it on a week's notice. Look, you want to make an argument that striker versus striker minus 360 too wide, fine, but I don't really think Vince is going to trouble him too much. What about you?
No, I'll be honest with you. Call me square, but I think Lapis' decision at minus 140 is a good play still.
That's not bad, actually.
Like,
That
call
really
me
is
again.
not bad.
Again, call me square, but I don't. Vince's grappling is not good. Like, even though we
He's
talked
not
about it a
going to
little
knock Vince out.
No, I don't think so either.
He only has like 4 career knockouts and like 23 wins. Well, he has more subs than he does knockouts, and he's not going to sub Vince.
No.
Yeah, that actually interests me quite a bit. To be like, I would say that should be like minus 200, honestly.
And it's trending that way. Some books are
Yeah.
around minus 160 ish, minus 165. Yeah, but I think honestly, I think anything under minus 170 is good on that.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you.
I know it's juicy on a decision prop, but just
moving on though, I'm curious. Will you be taking the big dog shot here? We got Ludovic Klein minus 1100 against Roosevelt Roberts plus 725. What are your thoughts?
I think similar to your never Vince Morales. Never Roosevelt Roberts. I think, man. I don't really know what to say. I mean, what is there to say? I think it's a great fight for Klein. I think on the feet, like other than the fact that yes, he is low volume, I think he's a way bigger hitter. And in terms of the grappling, I think he could land takedowns here.
Other than the fact that he doesn't throw strikes, he's the much better striker.
Listen, he's low volume. I mentioned that. He's low volume.
I know. Tristan said, is Roberts live in round 1? I don't think Roberts is going to finish Klein. I'd be surprised, unless he subs him, but I would be a little surprised at that. I do think the line's absurd, though. Like, Ludovic Klein, I know he's been fighting better lately. I know he's on good juice. I know he's better than Roosevelt Roberts, but, like, minus 1100? Like, fuck's sake, guys. What are we doing out here? I don't know. It's not like Klein, I think if he's going to cover that, it's likely going to come via grappling. But, I mean, it's not like Roberts is a helpless grappler. I don't know. I mean, the line feels too wide for me. I'm not going to bet Roberts. But, I mean, Klein's the better fighter probably everywhere. But Roberts is tall. He's lanky. He's got pretty good hands, and if Klein does a Klein and just ends up in, like, an ugly, clinchy fight, like, it's not hard to imagine him losing. Like, he basically lost to Jai Herbert 2 fights ago in that exact kind of fight. I think Herbert's better than Roberts, but not, like, by, like, an insane margin, So I think the price is mad. I actually kind of like the over, though. I think Klein is getting, Pepe just said it, too. Over 1. I like the over 2.5 here. And I like the over 1.5. I think Klein is getting treated like he's his powerhouse, but he was a prolific finisher regionally against Cans, but he hasn't really been in the UFC. Again, the only guys he's finishing are like really bad for the most part. And I know Roberts has gotten finished before, but him getting finished by Rebecca and lamped in the first 30 seconds by Kroom doesn't really tell me a whole lot, about how this fight will go. I feel like I don't think Klein's hands are really that potent. I think he's much more dangerous with his kicks. And I think it's going to be it's going to be tough to head kick a guy who's 6 inches taller than him or 7 inches taller than him, Like, it's very, very hard to head kick someone tall that's that much taller than you. So, like, I don't really think Klein's going to knock him out on the feet. And I don't really think Klein's got great jiu-jitsu. I kind of think, like I said, if he covers, I think it's going to be grappling, which I think lends a lot of credence to the over, So I actually do like the over here. I'm probably going to play it. I think it should probably be like minus 150 to the over 2.5 personally. So what are your thoughts on that, Legs?
Yeah, no, I was literally looking at an over 1.5 when you were talking about just overs in general or talking about the fight going along. So, I mean, I think the over – I mean, I guess in general, I'm not a huge over 2.5 guy. Maybe that's just me. That's just not my style. Like I like playing under 2.5s. Doesn't go the distances. I'd rather play over 1.5s. And even at a minus 160 price, I think that's pretty generous.
Yeah, I don't really. I don't know. I don't really understand where this line is coming from. To be quite honest,
Klein ITD is minus 190, John.
That's absurd, dude. What's Klein decision?
235. Plus 235.
Yep. I'd rather just pick the over at that point. Josh saying everyone's 6 to 7 inches taller than me. If everyone's 6'6'1", that's accurate. I am not tall. Okay? Lags can confirm. Moving on, though, we have got another. Well, it's a squash match according to the odds. We got Umar C. He's taking on Dawoon Jung. Current price, C is minus 600. The comeback on Jung is plus 425. Feels a little disrespectful to me, I think. I don't really. I'm kind of tired of like throwing darts on these big, these huge underdogs and just like losing on them. Dogfather was like messaging me last night during Contender Series, and he was like, I bet that dude Cam T, who was plus 430 and lost, and he was just like, yeah, I mean, the amount of money I've lost on saying this line can't possibly be right. And it's like, yeah, I feel the same way, like but I do kind of I feel like this line is more likely to be right than Ludovic Klein being minus 1100. That just seems objectively wrong to me. I don't know. Jung's a decent defensive wrestler. He's a decent get-up game. He's obviously the better striker in this fight. C looks like a really good grappler. He seems like a really plus wrestler and a pretty strong submission grappler. But he hasn't. I mean, his only fight in the UFC was against George Tokos, who doesn't belong in the UFC. And other than that, he hasn't fought anybody that like remotely matters. So I feel like, yeah, it's possible C is just elite and runs through him and cooks him and finishes him. But I also think like the level of variance on this fight could be quite wide. It's like, well, what if C has trouble taking him down, or he just gets up and separates? And now he is like sitting at distance and eating howitzers from Jung, I don't know, man. Like, Jung has fought a way, way higher level of competition, and he's not a terrible grappler. But I'm probably not going to bet him. With that said, again, I kind of like the over here. What do you think, Legs?
What is the over?
I think it's 1.5. I think it's 1.5.
It is. It's minus 155.
Yeah.
That's not bad. See, I kind of, again, I would say I'd like the over more maybe in this fight. Maybe I'm crazy than the last fight. I don't know about you. Like if we were playing like over 1.5 in both fights.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I mean, honestly, I think this is just. I actually think. Pepe said Umar C isn't going to lose. I tend to agree. I mean, he's minus 600, and
I just don't think Jung's good at all. Super slow. He only brings power to the table.
I do think though this going 7.5 minutes is like fairly likely. I mean, Pepe just said C by decision. C has a ton of round one finishes, but they're mostly against just jobbers. And Jung, at least, I think if C is going to sub him, it's probably going to come on the back end of this fight, as Jung gets tired. Like, that's when Olberg subbed him. I think while Jung's fresh, he's got like enough spring and explosiveness getting up that he can probably kind of just avoid getting subbed early in this fight, like a large majority of the time. But we'll see. Dogfather said he showed up and is 99% sure I'm on Duncan. I am not on Chris Duncan, my friend. No worries about that. Yeah. I thought about it, but I am not. But anyway, we move on to a banger. We have the debut of Ivan Urland, the man formerly who was once upon a time knocked out by Bronco Busic. Our boy Pepe in the chat, I believe, bet Bronco Busic in that fight. He is taking on the Hulk, Ion Kutalaba. Current price, Kutalaba minus 110, Urland minus 110. What do you think, Legs?
It's a bit of a mirror match, to be honest with you. I think Urland's pretty shit. But to be quite frank, like, I mean, this guy brings big power to the table, and that's about it. Like, these guys are both glass cannons, and I think you have to favor Kutalaba. Just better strength of schedule, fought the better guys, beaten the much better guys. I think slightly in Kutalaba's fine. Easy pass for me.
Honestly, I would bet Urland if he wasn't coming over from KSW and this was his first fight. Because all those fucking guys in KSW, man, are on like the most anabolic steroids you could possibly. Like, whenever you watch KSW tape, it's these guys are. These guys are growing like second and third heads, like out of their shoulders, and so many of them you see come over, and suddenly it's like this guy had a 12-pack and now he's flabby. Like, what the hell happened? So, like, I have some concerns about that. I don't really like Urland like that much. I kind of agree with you, big-time glass cannon. But I do think he is the better striker than Kutalaba. He's been 5 rounds before, so I think he probably has a significantly better cardio than Kutalaba. And, maybe my read of it is wrong because his quality of competition has been low, but I don't think he's got terrible takedown defense, and I think he's got a pretty good get-up game too, which I think is just problematic for Kutalaba. Like, they both are pretty fragile, but Urland throws a lot straighter and I think is a bit faster than Kutalaba. So, like, I kind of lean on Urland to knock him out, but I'm minus 110. Like, I'm with you. This is gambling. There's no need to gamble on this fight.
Flip a coin.
Yeah. It'll be a fun fight, though. It should be. It'll be a fun fight unless the pace is, like, insane for 6 minutes and they're both, like, sucking wind and just, like, carry this home to a decision. But I don't really think so. What's the under here?
I was going to say, so what do you think of the total then? It's a 1.5, and it's like minus 140 to the under. Minus 160.
Minus 160 now. I think that's about right, honestly. I think someone's going to die, though.
Yeah.
Moving on. Now, this is a good one. Lag's made a bet here. I will plant the flag here eventually, but we got Matt, the steamroller for Fola, Tri-State's own, from Long Island, taking on Perez Ziam, current price, Ziam minus 130, come back on Fola plus 110. What are your thoughts here, Lags?
Well, I'll start off by saying I'm planting the flag for a lot of reasons. But for the first reason, I'll start off with, this isn't like Fola has a massive wrestling edge, and then on the other side, we have a massive power puncher who's going to just absolutely lamp him like an Ngannou type power. Ziam doesn't bring that power threat to the table, in my opinion. And I think that's where people might be a little blinded in this matchup. I think Fola can land takedowns pretty easily. I think he can compete on the feet. I think Fola wins a decision. I think he could even submit Ziam as well. I think he can get to dominant positions on the ground. My issue with Fola in general in the grappling, though, is I don't think his top control is great. It's all right.
I mean, it's not great. It's okay. Yeah.
I got a unit on him at plus 110.
I have bet Perez Ziam in all of his last 3 fights, and I will be exiting the bandwagon at this juncture. I am selling my Perez Ziam stocks here. I mean, look, Matt Fola, he is vulnerable, and I do think, I was talking to our boy Art about this earlier today, and I disagree with him strongly about it because he was advocating for Fola no scorecards.
That was me as well. All 3 of us. Yeah.
Like if you tell me Fola is more likely of the 2 to finish this fight, I'd be like max betting him here, but I don't think he's the more likely. I mean, the truth is, I agree with you. Ziam is not like a crazy hitter by any means. I don't even think he's a particularly heavy hitter, but I think Fola is pretty glass, to be honest with you. Like, I don't think it takes. I don't think we're quite at the point where a stiff breeze knocks him down, but like the guy is easy to hurt. So it's like if Ziam finished him, it really wouldn't shock me at all. I mean, I think for Fola, it would be incumbent on him to come out and wrestle in this fight. I think, can he hang on the feet? If he can get inside of Ziam, maybe, because he hits hard himself, and Ziam does keep his chin very, very high in the air. But while they're at distance, I mean, Ziam's a much better striker than he is. I mean, just the reality. He's taller. He's a good bit longer. He's got a good jab. He's got decent low kicks. I think Fola is going to struggle if he tries to bang it out with him here. I do think he's going to get takedowns, though, if he wants them, and fairly easily, to be honest. And it's not just the playlist fight. Like, all of Ziam's grappling tape, except the Figlock fight, looks bad to me. Just about all of it,
Yeah.
Like the Figlock, and Figlock is just like a Euro wrestler weenie. Like, the guy's not a very good wrestler, and he's not very physical. So, that he struggled to take down like a really tall guy like Ziam, I mean, in retrospect, isn't that shocking? But like, I bet Ziam last fight against Perez, and I mean, Perez is a noodle and he took him down 7 times. Even was taking him down late when he was tired. Like that, to me, that's really concerning. And like, Ziam won that fight because he threw ground and pound when he reversed position, because Perez did nothing on top. But like, he's not going to get that luxury with Fola. He will throw strikes from top position. He is a pretty violent guy. Look, at the end of the day, I'm going to bet the American wrestler that has a top 15 win, who also has a black belt, against the light-waisted Frenchman who does not defend takedowns well. I don't think you can really go wrong with that dynamic. Maybe Fola gets knocked out.
I was going to say, and who doesn't have a ton of stopping power. And the matchup has more finishing upside.
Yeah, and Fovola's got a lot of stopping power himself, too,
Yeah.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, I have major concerns about Matt Fovola's chin. I'm not going to lie about that, but the truth is, let's also not forget this is a guy who also has victories over Jalen Turner and Drew Dober. It's not like he, anybody, with decent stopping power puts out Matt Fola. He's beaten guys with like serious hardware before. So, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I trust his pedigree a lot more. Yeah, Pepe said he's approaching 35. He is, but he's also a new dad. He's got that on his side. I mean, look, Fola is it's a big turnaround for him here. But the KO was a year ago. The 35 thing does concern me, and Ziam's obviously getting Ziam should be hitting his prime and still improving, but like I just don't rate the grapplers at the MMA Factory, man. Like none of those guys who come out of there really can grapple. Like it's crazy, and none of them
No.
seem to really improve in it. So, yeah, I mean I like Frivola here. I'm not going to bet him huge. I'll have 1 or 2 units on him though. I think he should be a small favorite. Moving on, we have got. Hold on. We have Morgan Charier taking on Gabriel Miranda. Current price, Charier is minus 700. Come back on Miranda, plus 500. I mean, unplayable. I feel like Charier should destroy him.
How do you feel about an over here? Because that's where I was looking at before.
You know what's funny? I was actually looking at like the under earlier today, and then the more I thought about it, I was like, I mean, Charier, he just plays with his food, man. The guy just does not like. If he came out here and bit the mouthpiece, I think he'd finish Miranda pretty quickly. He's just a much better fighter than him with way better hardware. But when does he ever do that? Like the guy just finds himself constantly in split decisions because he refuses to actually let his hands go. You know. But I think Tristan saying Miranda is live in round one. I mean, look, that's always going to kind of be his win condition is a round one finish. I don't think he's that live though. I think the price is fine personally. I think Morgan handles him. There's nothing. You seem to like the over, so hit me with it. Hit me with the take.
Well, I say I would lean the over. The only reason why I wouldn't be super like clamoring to bet it is because I'm just trying to stay away from these overs where I have like half of the fight. I don't know. In my opinion, Miranda's just kind of a flake. Say what it is.
He sucks, dude. He's not good. He fucking sucks, man. Yeah. Like no disrespect to him, but he is not a UFC quality fighter. Like good for him beating Shane Young, who is a flake, but like this dude is not good.
So I guess how I'm trying to word it, I'm trying to stay away from over 1.5 so that guys suck or guys are flakes and like the under could easily cash this up, quitting and getting themselves out of there. I would lean the over just because. Again, to your point, when is Morgan biting the mouthpiece in his fights? But I think I'm probably just going to stay away. I think it's a just heavy juice card.
Yeah. I mean, I'm betting. I think all dogs, if I'm not mistaken.
I am too, but I'm just saying a lot of the large favorites.
Yeah. There are some giant ones here, and there's a bunch of giant ones next week too, which is kind of shitty. But moving on, we have Brian Battle taking on Kevin Jette. Current price, Battle minus 162. Comeback on Jette. Plus 142. Lags, what are your thoughts here?
Another dog shot for me. I have a unit on Kevin Jette at plus 140. I guess, to me, people are overrating the grappling of Battle in this matchup specifically. Like, if he's not landing takedowns pretty easily on Jette, I think they're just going to be standing and striking. And in my opinion, Jette's the much better striker, can land much more volume, the bigger hitter of the two, probably the more durable of the two. He is pretty slow in plotting, I get that. But I like the volume and the striking of Jette. I think this should be much closer to a pick 'em.
Yeah, I mean, I love Jette at the price. I have 2.5 units on him at plus 154. I honestly was thinking about going 3.5, 4 units on it, and I may still increase it. I'm just like, here's the thing. I have been a Brian Battle backer historically. Like, I have been one of his staunchest defenders, as you know. When the guy came to the UFC, everybody was like, oh, Brian Battle fucking sucks or whatever. And it's like, well, I'm not saying he's great, but like everybody wanted to bet Tresean Gore against Brian Battle, and that's kind of the pattern he was on, where he was underlined for a bunch of fights. But now we're here, and he's fighting a real striker here in Kevin Jette, and he's like minus 165. And to me, the only way you can really get to a minus 165 on Brian Battle is if you think he's going to have like big grappling success. But look, Battle's a very skilled counter grappler. If you try to attack Battle aggressively wrestling, unless you're as physical as like Renato is, you're going to have a lot of issues because he uses his length and his frame and his chokes very well to like reverse position, scramble out of situations, and put you in danger. But he's not a great wrestler. He's not super physical. He's not a guy that I think is going to be top timing many people. So like I kind of would be surprised if like maybe he lands a takedown or two, but I'd be like a little surprised if he dumpsters Jette on the mat here. And striking, I don't think it's that close, really. I guess I shouldn't say that. Like, I think technically it's not close. Like Battle could probably keep up with him on volume, maybe even exceed his volume. But I think Giuseppe's much cleaner. He's much better in the pocket. He's much better on the counter. He's much harder to hit mid-exchange than Battle is. I think he's also the harder hitter by a fair amount. Arguably, the bigger thing is the leg kicks here. You know, not many guys have tried to kick Battle yet. His fights have all gone kind of weird, but, you know, what's his name? Fletcher kicked him like 3 or 4 times in the leg, like hard, and he made him switch stances. He really did not like it. And Giuseppe's going to rip kicks pretty much from the jump in this fight. And then on top of that, I feel like kind of what I mentioned, I felt Battle was very underrated coming into the UFC, but I think it's flipped the other way now. I mean, you go look at this guy's career. So the Lusa fight seems to be the fight that's gotten everybody excited, but like Ange Lusa is not that good, number one. Number two, that fight lasted for 6 minutes before the eye poke. It's not as if we saw.
And number three, I think everybody bet Ange Lusa in that fight.
Yeah, exactly. That was my recollection as well. But so that fight, I don't even take that much. I mean, he looked good in that fight, but I mean, Lusa was just you could see he just couldn't find the range, and Battle's huge. But then you go to the fight before that, AJ Fletcher hurts him bad in the first round, but Fletcher stinks. He manages to get his back, take him down. Renato mauls him. Gabe Green comes out like a bat out of hell, like a moron, and just decides to test chins with him and gets knocked out. Takashi Saito, he just head kicked right away. The other two fights you have are a very close decision with Tresean Gore, who is really not good, and then him getting owned by Gilbert Urbina until Urbina gassed out and got finished. I'm just like, Battle is very, very good as like, you know, an outside volume guy who can neutralize grapplers, but I don't think he's like all that skilled when it actually comes to striking, and I think he's going to have to strike here. Giuseppe is a guy I had been pretty low on. I bet Kenan Song against him pretty big. So maybe there's an argument that I'm buying too high here on the Giuseppe side of things, but you know, something I thought was interesting, if you actually look at his distance striking stats versus Song and compare them to, say, Song's fight with Ian Gary, he put up very, very similar stats, which I think is an interesting, you know, proxy for this fight, especially because I think Song was a lot more dangerous in some respects than Battle is for him. You know, Song actually, you know, he's not as high volume as Battle, but he carries really heavy hands in the pocket. And Giuseppe took those shots fine, which kind of surprised me. And, you know, if Song wasn't really hurting him, I kind of think Battle's not really going to be able to hurt him. And conversely, I do think Giuseppe's going to be able to hurt Battle here. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a close fight. Don't get me wrong. Battle, very high volume. He's the one with the grappling upside on his side. But at the end of the day, I think it's a very competitive fight. And I think if either one of these guys is going to look like a big favorite, I think it's much more likely to be Giuseppe than it is to be Battle, in my opinion. So, yeah, I like Giuseppe a lot here. Moving on. William Gomes, Joe Anderson, Britto. Current price, Britto minus 280. The comeback on Gomes, plus 240. What do you think, Lex?
I think Britto should handle Gomes personally. Like, I know Gomes is very fast. He's got good footwork, but he's very non-threatening. Doesn't really separate a ton outside of the Gamori fight, which, I mean, Gamori's dog shit, quite frankly. So I think Britto should finish him. But I think at the same time, he could definitely have some issues finding him in the cage. We are in a big cage, and like I mentioned, Gomes does have good footwork, but I think Britto should be able to land takedowns pretty easily on the feet. Again, much bigger hitter. Should be able to find a finish.
Yeah, I don't know. I really wanted to get to a Gomes bet, but I just can't. I'm not doing it. But the problem is, first of all, the thing I can't get out of my head is the Francis Marshall fight, man. He looked absolutely lost when he got grounded. And so it could be a situation where any takedown is a round or a finish for Britto, which is not something you necessarily want to steer into. Like, if they're at distance, I think Gomes is the better striker, right? You know, he's got better footwork. He's longer. He's taller. Probably a bit faster. He throws his shot straighter to the target anyway, if not faster. Like, I think he could win the striking in this fight. The problem is he has no margins. Like, you even go look at the Marshall fight. He outlanded Marshall 27-15 through 10 minutes in that fight. And that just means that, like, Britto won't even need to land more than a couple hard shots around to kind of swing them back. Now, maybe Gomes can do this again for 15 minutes and just kind of, like, dance around on the outside and, like, outpoint Britto. But I just feel like Britto has, like, massive favorite upside here via takedowns. I think Britto could win a standing decision, too, via just landing, like, hard leg kicks or landing a couple, like, really hard shots around just because of Gomez' volume. Whereas I really, really struggle to see Gomes winning a fight that isn't like a really close decision. I do think he could potentially give Britto some issues taking him down, just since he is so tall and he does dig unders pretty well. But ultimately, like, I think there's only one guy who could look like minus 500 here, and it's Britto. Like, I think a Gomes win is probably a very, very close decision. And I don't really want to be a part of that. So, yeah, I lean Britto. I actually do kind of lean this to go long, though. I mean, I guess the concern, again, is the aforementioned issues of Gomes on the ground, and maybe Britto could finish him. But I do sort of think, Gomes is enough of a neutralizer that minus 145 for the over 2.5 isn't bad. I mean, Gomez's fights just tend to have nothing happen in them. And Britto is a guy, when he gets tired, who's pretty happy to just kind of push you to the fence and just try to work from there. So I don't mind the over here, honestly. Moving on, we got Nasruddin Imavov taking on Brendan Allen. Current price, Imavov minus 210. Comeback on Allen, plus 180. I think Allen's small at plus 202 for like 0.75 units. I don't know. I think it's an interesting fight because on the one hand, in my opinion, Nasruddin Imavov is unquestionably the more skilled fighter in this matchup. He's the much better striker, much cleaner, throws a bit straighter. I even think he's not I don't think he's as outclassed in the wrestling as people think he is.
No.
I've seen a lot of people talk about there being a huge grappling edge for Allen, but the truth is Phil Hawes is a way better wrestler than Brendan Allen is. It's legitimately not close. Phil Hawes, if he could take a punch, would have been really good.
Yes.
So I don't think that there's this huge grappling edge. I do think Allen could potentially get takedowns. But where I think this could be close is, one, I don't think Imavov is like a nuclear hitter at all. Not that he's a light hitter, but I don't think it's like he's like an A-plus power puncher for the weight class. Two, he is low volume. That's the reality. This guy's been in a couple of close decisions because he just didn't do enough, whereas Allen is very, very high volume. And so it's one of those things that I could easily imagine a fight where Imavov is landing better shots, but you have Brendan Allen doing his outside kick game and just throwing a ton more strikes at him, and it's going to be pretty close on volume and go to the decision as a close fight. I kind of think that's going to happen unless he's consistently hurting Allen on the feet. I feel like Allen's volume is going to offset a lot of Imavov's technical superiority. And then the other thing is, even though, Allen could get a couple takedowns, I do think that. I don't think he's going to control Imavov as much as some people do, though. But I think almost more important is Imavov can't get off the fence. You see it all the time. He gets stuck on the fence, and he just can't really disengage from there. And Allen is pretty good in the clinch and has a pretty high work rate out of the clinch. And I just think it's the kind of thing where, we could see, 1 to 2 minutes around with Allen either hitting a takedown or pushing it up against the fence, beating him up there. And then you're looking at, only 8 to 9 minutes over the course of the fight at distance where it's Imavov really has to maximize those 8 to 9 minutes and not get out volume there. So I lean Imavov because I think he is the better fighter here. I actually think he's probably the better technical wrestler of the two. He's a sharper striker. He's faster. He's obviously got the better pedigree, but I think it's going to be a close fight. I think Brendan Allen's kind of weird defenseless marauder game could actually work pretty well against Imavov if he doesn't die. So I lean the Allen side. I bet him small. What do you think?
I don't disagree with that last point you made with him just coming forward here. But I like the over in general. And I think I got a lot of shit in general earlier in the week thinking, this fight's going to go long. But Allen is very punchable. I get that. But the guy, in my opinion, is pretty durable. He's got some dog in him.
If you look at the two fights where he got killed, I mean, Strickland landed 95 head strikes in that fight. He literally, it was like a machine. But Imavov's not gonna. He might not throw 95 strikes in this fight. Much less land that.
Yeah. So yeah, I like the over here. I don't think there's a ton of finishing upside from Imavov on the feet, and in terms of the wrestling, I don't think Allen subbing him is a high outcome either. And those, to me, those are the two biggest finishing threats to it going under.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, honestly. That's I kind of lean to the over too. And that brings us to the main event of the evening. Benoit Saint-Denis trying to rebound off his first loss at lightweight. He's taking on Renato Moicano, who, honestly, with a win, Moicano might get himself a pretty big fight here. It's an interesting fight. The current price, we got Saint-Denis minus 270. The comeback on Moicano plus 230. Are you intrigued by the money Moicano side?
I really want to be, because I think the big thing for me, and you'll definitely allude to it, and you have before in the past, I don't think BSD skill-wise is great. He brings a ton of pace on the feet. His body kicks are very nasty. I mean, dude kicks like a mule. Dude has a ton of horsepower. The hardware gap between these two is night and day. But in terms of like the grappling, I really don't think it is. Like, I think Moicano could get held down here and could end up, getting finished on the mat, but I don't know, man. I think more often than not, if Benoit is not like knocking him out or finding a finish on the mat, I think it's probably a competitive fight. It's just tough. I'll just say it's just tough to trust the durability on Moicano's side, which, I mean, you're going to hear that nonstop
from everybody. Yeah, you're going to hear it from me. I'm with you.
And it's hard to ignore, though. I mean,
it is hard to ignore.
I even talked about it in the Moises fight when BSD was fighting Moises, and it's like, well, you have one guy who has absolute Chad durability, and you have one guy who's, I mean, just a beta. It is what it is.
I don't think Moicano is a beta. I was going to say, Moises could be a bitch in there when things go wrong. Moicano is not a bitch,
Yeah, I'm not going to sit on this podcast and call Moicano a beta. That's not.
He will bite the mouthpiece. He is honestly too much of an alpha for his own good. His mindset is much more alpha than what his body can actually handle. It's interesting. I am like intrigued by Moicano, but I'm not sure I'm going to bet him. I think the interesting. I mean, look, obviously, I'm not going to go back to the hardware stuff. You just nailed it. I mean, we all know the deal here. Even in the body, I think he's a bit soft. Everybody remembers Turner
like 10 seconds.
hurt him bad at the body. It's before he knocked him down later in the fight.
I had the under 2.5 in that fight, John.
Dude, it went under 2.5.
Did it?
Didn't he finish him in round 2?
I'm trying to remember if he did. I thought it was round 3. I'll have to look and see.
Oh, you might be right, actually.
I'll have to look and see what I had.
But yeah, the thing is, he is soft to the body, and BSD is going to be winging those giant body kicks. He's obviously chinny to the head. The thing is, though, I've seen like a few people say this is going to be like the RDA fight all over again, where BSD just takes him down and controls him. But what if Moicano just takes BSD down? Moicano has tried to take down just about everybody, including RDA, by the way. RDA was just too physically strong for him and too good of a grappler. And I don't think BSD's a bad grappler. Obviously, he's a pretty good one. But I think a lot of it is physicality reliant, and I don't think Benoit's defensive wrestling is any good at all. So it's kind of one of those things where I feel like maybe what if Moicano just comes out and tries to take him down and does? I think Moicano can do way, way, way better on top than or I shouldn't say way better. I think Moicano is much more likely to get to a very dominant position on top than BSD is, though. If he gets it down. I just think he's got much better jiu-jitsu than – I mean, Saint-Denis' jiu-jitsu is not bad, but I think Moicano's is a different level, in my opinion. Local man shakes fist and said, I think a lot of it comes down to whether his cardio is bad because of staff. I mean, that's probably part of it. The thing is, though, I don't really believe that Benoit could fight at that pace, even normally. That pace was insane he tried to set against Poirier. I mean, let's be honest. If he could fight at that pace for 25 minutes, he's going to be champion. That's the truth,
So my two issues with him, though, and I should say first, the under 2.5, I was freaking out, I should say, because I did have that. I had that parlayed up with the Jamal Hill fight to not go the distance.
Right.
But I was freaking out just because I'm like, okay, he's about to finish him. And then the finish actually happened 4 minutes into round 2. So, I mean, we're getting sweaty there. But in terms of BSD, my big issue with him is the two indictments of his career of him looking bad in terms of the cardio, or his last fight against Poirier, where, again, had staff, and his UFC debut, again, up a weight class, short notice against Elizu dos Santos. So it's tough.
It is tough, but I'm just saying objectively, I find it very hard to believe he could keep that pace for 25 minutes. That would shock me if that's the case. Merab can do it, but Merab is in a tier of 1 when it comes to that. There is nobody else in the history of the UFC that can do that with that kind of cardio. Now maybe Benoit is the second guy, and maybe he's coming for the title after this. I don't know. I'm inclined to think not, though. I'm inclined to use the other 99.99999% of fighters in UFC history and say he's likely in that group. But yeah, I mean, look, the hardware is just the scary thing here. I think Moicano could hurt Benoit on the feet, to be honest. But I don't want him exchanging in the pocket with Benoit Saint-Denis, I don't know. It's a really interesting fight because I do think Moicano is pretty obviously the more skilled fighter, in my opinion. It's just the difference in hardware between these two is so fucking big. I don't know, man. I am like tempted to do it just because if Moicano comes out there, clinches him up, and takes him down in the first minute and gets an immediate body triangle, I'm gonna put a bullet in my head. You know, like I don't know. Did you bet Frivola with me against PSD?
No.
Like Frivola got him down twice very easily. Moises got him down very easily. You know, I do not think Moicano is going to have a lot of trouble taking him down if he wants to. And I don't see why he wouldn't want to, you know? Like, I can't imagine he wants to sit there and exchange with him. But then again, I don't know. I'm intrigued. Like I said, I think the fact of the matter is I had 2 units on Thiago Moises at plus 140 against BSD. And now like, Renato Moicano's plus 240. Yeah. I don't want a martingale, though. I like Benoit, you know? But I do think this price...
Did you bet Poirier or no?
Yeah, I did bet Poirier. Okay. This price is a bit disrespectful, though. I don't know. I might just pass it because I don't feel passionately about it. I do lean to Moicano having a little bit of value though here. But we'll see.
I mean, to be honest, he's the only side with value. Like, yeah, I mean, even if BSD comes out here and gets like a relatively quick finish, I would be shocked.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's like, what is his upside? Like, can BSD be like north of minus 300? It would be surprising. It would be surprising, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll take a small poke at Moicano. I'm going to wait and see what the line does because I have a feeling BSD is going to keep getting bet. Maybe if it pushes out to like the plus 275, 280 range on fight night, I'll take a shot at Moicano, but I'm not like super, super passionate about it. Also, it's breakfast cocktail weekend. Noon show.
Start at 12. Yep.
12 o'clock.
Now, I'll still be here actually drinking, but I'll be going to the Penn State game.
Oh, you're in PA.
That is a Saturday noon game. Or sorry, not noon game, night game.
Oh, so you're gonna.
That is a whiteout. That is a whiteout Saturday night game.
So, are you at your parents' house right now?
No, not my apartment.
So, how are you going to Penn State game?
In Bloomsburg, John. I'm in Bloom.
Yeah, but that's like not close to College Station.
An hour. It's like an hour and a half.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Really? That Bloomfield, New Jersey, or Bloomsburg, New Jersey, is an hour and a half?
John, I'm not in New Jersey. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania.
Right. That's not where you live, though, is it?
That is where I live.
I thought you live in New Jersey. Didn't you go move to New Jersey?
No.
No. Christ.
That's all right. Now you're good. No, you're good. I was saying, I'm literally like an hour from State College. It's great.
Oh, okay. Aren't you only like at 20 minutes from Philly, though?
No, like 2 hours from Philly.
Oh,
I don't know what you're thinking. Yeah. I'm like 40 minutes. I'm like 40 minutes from our boy John Kelly.
Is it? I thought he's like 20 minutes from Philly.
No.
Okay. I don't know Pennsylvania geography, man.
Yeah, he's probably at least an hour and a half from Philly.
But yeah, Chris Tristan said any thoughts on Rene De Ritter? I don't really know much about him.
John's gonna bet GM3 first fight.
Probably. 100%. I mean, that's what I did. He's gonna be plus 500. So I mean, I'll probably take a small poke on him. But of course, I didn't bet him in the Edmund fight. Now I'm gonna turn around and bet him on.
Oh my god! John, that was like a perfect like John spot though.
Yeah, but anyway, I gotta sign off because I gotta go pick my kids up. Guys, thank you for coming out this weekend. Breakfast cocktail season. Make sure you have your favorite. Make sure you get a bagel or whatever your fight day meal of choice is. But good luck this weekend, whether you're following or fading. Drop a like, subscribe, fight numbers. Use the promo code club. We'll see you guys next week on Wednesday. Peace.